Even before the nullscapes controversy, we have had a lot of stupid drama surrounding the clicks between frames mod over the past few months. And with all this in mind, a while ago I made a community post asking you guys for what you think the dumbest drama in GD history is, to get some ideas. And so today we're going to be looking at the 10 dumbest dramas in Geometry Dash history, just as something to sort of laugh at, and honestly, maybe someday the CBF dramas of today will be in one of these lists in the future. And hey, if you enjoy me uploading more than once a month, please consider subscribing. The goal is for us to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we're in the final stretch of doing so. And without further ado, let's get into the video. While these aren't necessarily in a strict order, I do think that they generally do get more and more stupid as the video goes on. And if I miss any really stupid drama, feel free to comment it down below. And so starting off at number 10, we have the cancellation of Fusion Z. For those of you who don't know, because this is an older one, Mannix was a very huge popular creator back in like early 2.1, late 2.0, and around the turn of 2017, there were 3 huge projects that he was working on. The other 2 mega collabs actually are pretty big names now. The first of the 3 was Bloodlust, which obviously was verified by Boy and placed at number 1 for quite some time. The other was Blade of Justice, which was also meant to be top 1, but eventually got super nerfed, but is still pretty well known today, especially since Edge of Destiny's release. Which, by the way, Edge of Destiny is about where the difficulty of old Blade of Justice would be, so the unnerfed version was kind of like 5 years ahead of its time, which is really weird to think about. And then there was Fusion Z, the conclusion to the Fusion series, and this huge mega collab. And even though the level was finished, Mannix just simply wasn't happy with the result, and just like straight up canceled the entire project. I think he might have quit the game at some point in that timeline, but if you were around in the community back then, you know that half the people who said they quit the game back then ended up coming back during like the pandemic or before then, so whatever. This was like a super big deal back when it actually happened, even though nobody remembers it now. But that is partially because Boy, who was already involved in the project, decided to make his own like quote-unquote remake of the level, where he tweaked some things, swapped out some parts, and then released it under the new name of Molten Gear. And honestly, I gotta say, I think Molten Gear is definitely an improvement, but it still is kind of a shame that the original Fusion Z was never really verified in the way it was supposed to be. So at least this controversy got a happy ending, but it was still pretty stupid. And it feels even more redundant because Boy ended up reviving it anyways. Also, no hate to Mannix, this was like a billion years ago. At number 9, moving up very, very recently, is the pausing is cheating silent clubstep verification drama. Mid-2022, lots of things are happening. We just got 3 new top 1s, followed by 2 more top 1s, and silent clubstep is getting verified. Vision and Zoe were the 2 players who seemed to have the most progress, and eventually Zoe came out on top, verifying the level in July. However, at the end of the completion, Zoe did actually pause the game after each time that the icon fell 1 block, just to ensure that she was keeping track correctly, because even though the ending Impossible Maze is like hard demon gameplay, it is at the end of one of the hardest levels of all time. Now, I would think that this would be pretty uncontroversial, but I also remember that most of this community is like 12 years old. The act of pausing the level is actually something that is hard-coded into the game and therefore is a feature of the game, and so making use of it is completely valid. There is no demon list rule either that says that you cannot pause the game. If you get through the first half of Slaughterhouse and then pause the game to go eat dinner with your family, and then come back to your computer and you finish the rest of the level, that's a legit completion. I probably wouldn't recommend doing that because the nerves would be pretty bad, and honestly, I think other than W Pop-Off, no one really has the skill to pull that off, but yeah, in theory, that's completely legitimate. You're not modifying the game in any way, shape, or form. This isn't a clicks between frames situation. Now you're not gonna believe this. I'm gonna tell you something that's gonna blow your mind. Most people who were mad at this just didn't like that Paco is trans. So yeah, this drama was pretty stupid, and honestly, a lot of people didn't even really care much about it because it was such a transparent front. Like, there is no way that you can like seriously argue that pausing the game is cheating, especially when you don't tab out of the game. That I would understand. We get some like limbo checking your own footage situation. Okay, maybe we can argue about that. But yeah, pausing the game for like less than a second is not. That's so ridiculous. Oh yeah, and also feel free to just make fun of the inevitable cope comments that will be showing up under this video. I know what's going on. It's an election year, I get it. Moving on to something that should be way less controversial. At least I hope so. I hope Adby's not watching this video. At number 8, 8, we have that time that Crazen tried to steal Bloodlust. A lot of people were kind of tired of Novelboy taking forever with the level, but he was actively showing progress and streaming the level, like when he was playing it. And he was playing it pretty often. This isn't a Swyborg situation, where you take on like 50 verifications and then your dog eats your PC or whatever the fuck. Though to be fair to Swyborg, I think the hosts for Deimos and Eternal Night also had their PCs eaten by their dogs, so I mean, whatever, at least you're not being a dick to them behind the scenes. Anyway, it is really funny that there was a chance that if Crazen decided to keep going with this level and just race Novelboy to verify Bloodlust and won, that we could have genuinely had one of the most iconic levels in Geometry Dash verified by someone who would go on to be exposed as a PDF file. So yeah, that's pretty insane. That feels like a very close call. Also, you gotta feel bad for Novelboy too, because even though it took forever for him to verify it, he genuinely was putting in the effort. This isn't like Delphi or Trick where they just like don't play the level for months and then find like 50 excuses for it. This was like genuinely just someone trying to work on a level that they were super dedicated to verifying, and then some idiot who would later get exposed for touching kids tries to seal the verification, which is wild. Also, for those of you wondering, I didn't put any of the Death Corridor dramas in this video, like including Octofly, because full transparency, I don't think they're stupid enough. Okay, so heading into number 7, the rest of these are just going to be uncontroversially just extremely funny, or just a plain stupid situation. And at number 7, we have the Denni and Trick diss track, because Gatto Carrot called them out for scamming children. I still can't believe this was a real thing. For those of you who don't remember, basically, like, Kai Guy made this improvement Geometry Dash course and stuff, and he got some top players like Denni and Trick and some others to join it. And it came under fire because it was aimed towards children, obviously. I mean, Kai Guy was involved. And if I recall correctly, I think Denni was the one who said, just ask your parents for money to get the subscription. It's a whole can of worms. I'm not gonna go into all of it, but it is so incredibly funny that this resulted in a diss track made by Denni and Trick. That is just peak stupidity. And also, by the way, Trick at this point in time did have his Twitter profile set to a picture of Kendrick Lamar, and in the reply after it had already received some hate was like, guys, don't worry, it's just a joke response. And then eventually the whole tweet was deleted. I'm sure there's still copies of it somewhere. But yeah, the GD Memes Weekly channel was just blessed with like the dumbest thing to happen in quite some time.
Hi, I'm Denni, and I owe you all a sincere apology.
Speaking of Geometry Dash diss tracks, there was a diss track war between C1997 and the creator of Silent Circles, Cyrillic. Basically, C1997 was like a big commentary channel back in the day. He roasted Cyrillic, Cyrillic didn't like that and called him out for it, and then he made a diss track in response, basically, where he called him fat and said he looked like Kim Jong-un. And then there was a diss track made on C1997. So yeah, don't worry, Denni and Trick did not invent this concept. We have been stupid as a community collectively since the dawn of time. Although, of course, C1997's diss track was fire, of course.
People know the truth, you'll get hate. Now let's begin to talk about your weight. I can't wait for you to have a heart attack. Sound harsh, well sorry, but it is diss.
And they say British rap is dead. Coming in at number 5, we have the first drama that I was actually somewhat involved in. This was the exposal of Nick XD, who was, I think, a member of Cherry and might still be, I can't remember. Whatever, he's a Russian player, close enough. Nick XD already had been making some showcases and things like that for quite some time, but then he started uploading these runs on the unnerfed version of Death Corridor that he claimed were legit, and subsequently, a bunch of people called him out for being completely fake. Among them were some pretty big names like Ice Cave, and then me being a smaller YouTuber at the time, and an opportunist, made a video kinda clowning on him that was like 2 minutes long, by the way, and it pissed off Nick XD enough that he included me in his anti-exposing video, where he like refuted all of everyone's points, even though it was very transparently hacked, given his hand cam was a fucking black square. It's funny too, because I probably ended up making more money from the ad revenue of making fun of him in 2 videos, given the state that the Russian ruble was in at that point in time. If you know, you know. At number 4, we have the real Mike drama. This is another one I have good memories of. This is another one I was involved in. So for those of you who don't know, there's this very old impossible level called Element 111RG, and a player by the name of the real Mike was making some progress on the level, and then it turned out that he had actually nerfed the level, so therefore his verification and all the progress videos ended up being faked. If it was just another like small hacker exposal, I wouldn't have put it on this list. I mean, even Nick XD was mostly just funny because of the community's reaction to it. But the real Mike actually turned out to be a terrible person. I still have the video up, by the way, even though we all kind of just drove him out of the community. It's still up if you guys want to go see it. The funny part was that he really tried to like bring back his reputation after saying some low-key Dr. Disrespect things, if you get what I mean. The send it to Puko incident, blatant racism, and not washing his hair, and basically everyone was just not having it. Next up is Wabu's infamous 83 Geometry Dash build hacks video, which is still public, by the way. Wabu had already been facing a lot of backlash for some of his previous videos where there were a lot of slip-ups that made it seem like he was writing his videos with AI, or at least putting little to no effort into scripting/writing his videos, but this one was by far the worst, as a lot of these build hacks were not only completely useless even when just taking it at face value, but would actually help make the game, or level I should say, laggier and harder to play. There are tons of Geometry Dash creators who are way better than I am who have reacted to this video, but the top comments probably say it all at this point, including Tried, who is like the nicest person you will ever meet, and the dislikes being disabled by the owner, which by the way, the dislike count is still technically hidden on YouTube, meaning that it is so bad that he wanted to hide the dislike count from people who have the Chrome extension that brings back YouTube dislikes. So as you could imagine, this video was not received very well. And also his channel hasn't recovered since. It's incredibly funny. At number 2, we have the whole tidal wave drama and RobTop making excuses to not rate tidal wave. I feel like this one's a little less funny and more so just sort of sad because like it ended up being like this huge drama over something that really shouldn't have been that big of a deal. The more I look back at this, I do think RobTop was sort of at fault for being unclear as to why he wasn't rating tidal wave. But the community's reaction was pretty overblown. It's redundant now because tidal wave has been rated, but it was a really weird situation at the time. Before we get to number 1, I want to say that the honorable mention would be the evolving Grief and Clicks Between Frames drama saga. I do think when Grief is verified, the resulting drama, because Doggy used Clicks Between Frames to verify it, would be at number 1 on this list if I made it later. So I at least wanted to mention it. And finally, at number 1, we have the Acheron click pattern drama. I'll give a brief explanation, but if you're more interested, feel free to watch Troy PM's video on it. It does a pretty good job of covering everything. But basically what ended up happening was, after the level was verified and people were making progress on it, there was this one click in the level in which there was sort of a skip, meaning that you could make a couple clicks of the level easier. The host, Raimu, really did not like this and decided to patch it by placing an extra spike in the part, but the spike he put in the level ended up making the level impossible. And then a couple hours later, this was fixed, replaced with a trigger orb where if you did the quote-unquote wrong click pattern, a spike appears and you just die. The backlash was so heavy that Raimu ended up reverting all of the changes, and all this happened before the level was actually placed on the demon list, so no harm, no foul, right? Wrong actually. Months later, Raimu updated the level to have it so that if you did that pattern, there would be a message that follows you that's just plain text saying "not cool man, frown face." And then Zoink tried to verify the buff date to Acheron, and then RobTop update locked the level to end the drama. It's insane. It's so stupid. I do genuinely think that this is the stupidest drama in Geometry Dash history, at least that I can remember. And so yeah, that's it for the top 10 stupidest dramas in Geometry Dash history. Let me know if I missed one, or if there's a rather obscure one that you guys are particularly amused by down in the comments below. If you did enjoy today's video, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton, yada yada. You got the whole rant before. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.
Goodbye.